Tell you what, it scares me if all of a sudden Raheem Sterling becomes on our FPL radar. So many premiums to fit into our team. It feels like there's enough of them already, Mark. How would you say when you reflect on game week 1 in the premiums, I'm talking your Haalands, your Salahs, Núñez, Son, KDB, they all returned. What are the takeaways in terms of the standout premiums going into game week 2?
Well, I mean, Haaland has announced himself, hasn't he, with the 2 goals at West Ham. I think that was pretty chilling to see how he just excelled in that game. And, the suspicion is he's going to rip up the Premier League and be an absolute key asset in FPL. Personally, I'm too worried to doubt that. I think I want him in the team, and I don't want to take that risk without him. I have gone on no Salah, and the reason behind that is because Liverpool are changing. Núñez and incorporating a number 9 in that Liverpool attack could mean that they change up tactically. And I saw at Fulham, Salah was occupied wide a lot of the game. Yes, he got the goal and assist, but he only got that when Liverpool, were chasing the game when they were behind. And how often is that going to be the case? I think, I'm going to be watching the Palace game. What I saw from that game, Salah could be out wide more and be there to provide service for Núñez, which is what he did at Craven Cottage. So I'm okay with having Son because Son had 4 shots in the box. He created 4 chances. He was very lively. So it's really interesting to see how Son and Salah are going to compare over the season. When you consider if you don't have Salah, you can get an extra Liverpool player, and you've got Diaz and Núñez in the equation. So for me, the heavy hitters of priority is Haaland. And then, it's still up in the air with the others. I think De Bruyne, Salah, Son, at the moment, I can't separate them. But I'm sure, 2 or 3 weeks' time, it's most likely that Salah will emerge as essential again.
Listening to Gianni and Lee on Off the Bench on Monday was really interesting because obviously as a Liverpool fan, Lee was talking quite a lot about the way that Liverpool might change when Núñez is properly part of that team and regularly starting. And he kind of shares your view, Mark, that actually Salah's game will be impacted by Núñez arriving. So I think I'm not prepared to be in a situation where I haven't got Salah versus Crystal Palace. I reeled off a load of stats last week about his record in game week 1. His record in game week 2 is just as impressive, averaging over 10 points per match against them in recent times. So at the moment, I feel like he, alongside Haaland, is essential. But I am watching quite closely because when that wildcard window comes into view, probably in and around game week 5, if Núñez is regularly starting and we are seeing this shift in the way that Liverpool play, like we're kind of anticipating might happen, I can see there being a movement of FPL managers from Salah over to Núñez.
And even before Darwin came on against Fulham, that first half from Salah and from Liverpool overall in general, and they won't be as bad as that every week, was terrible. He had nothing. He had literally nothing. I think he touched the ball once, maybe in their box or something like that, in 45 minutes. And this is Mo Salah against a promoted side. So as good as they were against City in the Community Shield, and we were all quite excited, that Fulham game showed that maybe they're just not ready yet.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they react. It does feel hard to kind of part company with any of them going into a Crystal Palace fixture though, doesn't it? Let's focus in a little bit more on Man City versus Bournemouth and Haaland specifically. It feels like he's becoming almost essential. The fact that 3 of the 4 of us have made the transfer and 4 out of 4 of us are going to have him going into game week 2. Can you cover him, Mark, by having a Kevin De Bruyne or by going a little bit cheaper and looking at one of their other midfielders potentially, do you think?
I think after one game, it's difficult to say. I think we saw the change of system at West Ham. You saw the 2 number 8s pushed up, the fullbacks inverted into midfield. It all looked like it was set up to create space for Haaland. And that is why I've got straight on the Norwegian, because I think City are setting up to get Haaland space, to exploit the fact he's a world-class finisher. And if they're going to, form their tactics around that, then you've got to think he's going to be the top scoring player in that team. De Bruyne has got a key part to play, though. We saw him link up with Haaland for the second goal. He could keep pace with him, given that he gets the extra points for goals and clean sheets. But I think it's very, very risky to go against Haaland with your choice. So I think if you can get to Haaland, do that, but keep De Bruyne in mind over the long term and watch how it shakes up.
God, it felt awful, didn't it, watching Haaland play on Sunday, not owning him. It was one of those matches where I was like, I need a bigger sofa to hide behind here, because this guy looked like he was going to score every time he got the ball near the goal. So I'm not sure that anybody covers it, because watching Manchester City in the past, I've always watched their midfielders, and likewise on Sunday against West Ham, there was no midfielder that really, apart from Kevin De Bruyne, that's really stood out. And I thought, yes, like Foden or Grealish, or they've had a fantastic game and I must own them. But with Haaland, it was very much I need to find a way to get this guy in my team, even if that means making the ultimate sacrifice, that is selling Harry Kane in order to fund it. So I don't know. I think for me, Kevin De Bruyne is obviously a fantastic pick. He is obviously a player that has Premier League experience and is made a better player by having a proper number 9 in Haaland ahead of him. But I would still prioritise Haaland as a transfer in, and I wouldn't try to compromise or save some money or shift budget around rather by having KDB instead.
I feel like I've spoken about KDB as if he's cheap. He's actually 0.4 million more than Haaland. So you're not really going to save any budget. So I guess it's more of a question of, if you've got that money, is it better invested in Haaland? And I feel like the resounding answer is yes. What did you make of the likes of Phil Foden, Jack Grealish and co, Jules? Any other options in there? We talked already about Kulusevski winning the battle of the 8 million midfielders. Did anyone else from City put their hand up for inclusion in our teams?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Sam and I talked about Grealish at the, in the pre-season before the season started, because we felt that he could have a big impact this season and could have a good season. He will have to release the ball quicker. I think I agree with Mark completely in the way City set up was definitely to make Haaland shine and to get him the service that he didn't get, for example, at the Community Shield the week before. But to get Haaland the right service, Jack Grealish will have to change a little bit his game as well, and to improve and to be more clinical in what he does with the ball, whether that's passing, but even dribbling, but can't hold on the ball too long. And that's what worked so well with KDB on the second goal, for example, and that's what worked very well through the game with Erling Haaland and the link up between him and the other players. So for Grealish, I was a bit disappointed, I have to say, in the 2 games that we saw already, Community Shield and game week 1. I think Foden has the talent and the ability to do what De Bruyne did on the second goal, and that link up and that relationship with Haaland. And for Riyad Mahrez, I think being on the bench for that game against West Ham is a sign of maybe not great things to come for him, although there will be rotations and stuff like that. But yeah, I would go Foden. I think Foden can strike a really good partnership with Haaland as well, a bit like KDB.
I do agree on the Foden pick, but I think that Mahrez benching was a warning sign to all of us as FPL managers that this can and will happen over the course of the season with Pep. He will bench Mahrez, he will bench Grealish, he will change the formation depending upon the way that he wants his Manchester City team to play and the opposition that he's coming up against. So Foden, I agree, I thought he had the best game of the ones that are in that kind of 8 million bracket for City, but the threat of rotation and the potentially better the better investment options that you have available at City means I'd be spending the budget there and saving it and spending the slightly cheaper or mid-price midfielder bracket elsewhere on the likes of Kulusevski at Spurs.
Mark, for